Hi there, hello, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Discourse. Today we're continuing our examination of Book 2, and now we're looking at Chapter 11 of Book 2. Book 2's Chapter 11 starts as, it is not a prudent policy to make a friendship with a prince who has more reputation than force. In other words, a prince has reputation, has a bit more reputation than he has actually in force. In other words, his might in that sense. This is going to be, it's one paragraph chapter, so it's kind of shortish. So we'll just go right into it. Since Titus Livy wished to show the era of the I can never say this, Sidicini, entrusting in the aid of the Campians, and the error of the Campians in believing that they could defend them. He could not speak in more lively words than when he says, the Campians brought to the aid of the Sindisci a name rather than the strength for defense, right? Again, this is quoted with alterations from Livy 7:29. In other words, they had more reputation than they had actual force. So therefore they went, in other words, the Campians brought to the Sinians a name, a reputation, rather than force. It ought to be noted that the leagues that are made with princes, who do not have either the occasion for aiding you because of the distance of their sight, or the forces, or the force to do it because of his own disorder or some other cause of his own, brings more fame than aid to those who trust in them. In other words, two reasons. One, too far away, and two, they have too many problems they're dealing with. In other words, they don't have the forces to send you because they can't move them from, in other words, they either in other words, because of distance of the sight, or because of his own disorder, or some other cause that he can't, of his own, something he has to pay attention to. Over here, he's not going to sacrifice his own, either the disorder in his own system that requires his force to maintain security, or he has an interest, some enterprise of his own over here that he promises you, but he's not going to send the forces necessary to help you. And they bring more fame than aid in those who trust in them. So it happened in our day to the Florentines when in 1479 the Pope and the King of Naples assaulted them, that while being friends with the King of France, they drew from that friendship the name rather than the defense, right? Now this is interesting. Pope Sixtus, Ferdinand of Aragon, King of Naples, Louis VI of France. This is Phoenicians, Florentine Histories, Book 8, 10 through 18 section, right? And the other point was, so let's go back here. That's the friendship, right? The friendships of these people. And a name rather than a defense. And Machiavelli says here in the next sentence, quotes again in Latin, adapted from Livy, Book 7, chapter, section 29. So it would happen also to that prince who undertakes some enterprise, trusting in Emperor Maximilian. For this is one of those friendships that brings to him who makes it a name rather than a defense, as is said in this text of the Campasians brought to the Syndicari. Oh, it's 2 chapters, okay, two paragraphs, okay. I didn't see that. My picture myself blocked it, okay. So again, this is a very interesting point that the Emperor Maximilian that they relied on here. This is Prince 23. The emperor or the emperor is not going to help. The emperor is a big, powerful name, but it's the disorder of the empire is not going to be a useful thing for the Florentines. The Caputins thus erred in this part, because they seemed to themselves to have more forces than they had. In other words, the Capuchins thought they had more forces than they had. And thus sometimes the little prudence of men, who neither know how nor are able to defend themselves, make themselves wish to undertake the enterprise of defending others. In other words, the lack of prudence. In other words, my lack of prudence of people who neither know how, nor are able to defend themselves, take the enterprise of defending someone else. So that's the mistake here. So the Capuchins' mistake was they couldn't help. They couldn't do it. They didn't even help themselves. This lack of prudence led them to do this. Again, this is shocking, right? It's so. Also, did the Tarentians, who, when the Roman armies went out against the Samnite army, sent ambassadors to Rome, to the Roman consuls, to make him understand they wished for peace between the two peoples, and that they would make war against whichever departed from peace. So the consul, laughing at this proposal, had the call to battle sounded in the presence of said ambassadors, and commanded his armies to go meet the enemy, showing the Tarentines with work, and not with word, what reply they were worthy of. Now, this word "meet" here is again find. It's literally is find. They find, right? And here, this is chapter 7. This is chapter 7, and there's a note here. In Livy 9:14, the consul Puripus Cursus does not laugh, but says that the chicken men announced favorable auspices, and the sacrifice was propitious, so the Tarentines could see that the authority of the gods supported them. So therefore, Machiavelli, this is very interesting. Livy does not have the Romans laugh, but point to the gods. Point that the chicken men had does not laugh, but says the chicken men announced favorable auspices, and the sacrifices were propitious. So the Tarentines can see the authority of the gods supported the Roman action. Right. This is what what Livy would say. Machiavelli instead has him laugh at him and say, "I'm going to send my armies up." So therefore, there's a shocking that Machiavelli. Livy points to the power of the gods. Machiavelli, it doesn't mention that, but rather shows the laughter of the Roman consul. That the Roman consul shows little contempt, right, for their position, showing not with action, deeds, works, not with words. Having reasoned in the present chapter of the Politics to the contrary, that princes take up the defense of others. In other words, having reasoned in the present chapter of the policies to the contrary, that princes take up the defense of others, I wish in the following to speak of those that they take up for their own defense. In other words, he's going to continue now. He said, I reasoned why princes help others in this chapter and the other chapters. Usually they either do it because there's a good reason and there's a necessity, or some silly, they make bad judgments or bad reasons. So, having reason in the present chapter to the policies contrary that princes take up for the defense of others, I will wish in the following to speak of those that they take up for their own defense. Right? That's how he ends the next chapter. So therefore, he's going to say why princes will act in their own defense. Okay, so that's the next chapter. So he foretells us what we're going to come up next. So we'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, please put it here, and I will respond to them when I see them. I'm sorry we had 3 interruptions today, so I beep beep beep, and and there's the fan going on. Again, this is so. Please, when I see the comments, I will respond to them. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Please hit the like button. If you also liked it, share it. Share it on your social media. Share it to your friends. Share it far and wide. And last but not least, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. What you get is notifications. You get access no matter what. But by doing this, you get it helps the algorithm. In other words, commenting, liking, sharing, and subscribing all increases the algorithm. So people searching for things like Machiavelli's Discourses or Machiavelli would find these videos, would become more likely to run across. If you didn't like it, you can always thumbs down, but say why in the comments. This way people can benefit. What is the reason why you're saying you didn't like it? And that's why people can benefit from it. Now, another thing you can do is if you want to follow me on social media, the social media links are below. If you want to follow me, know more about me as a scholar, researcher, check out my research and scholarship and things like that, publications, you can do so through the academic social media links below the social media links. And if you want to help me to do what I do financially, and that's how you can do so through subscribe to our Patreon, or then you can do so through, or you could buy one of my books that are currently available, listed below, and you can do so either, of course, you can buy it locally, of course, but if you can't, if it's not available, or whatever, you can do it through an online intermediary like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Libris, whatever, or through directly the publisher. And as for the one ebook that I currently available, I think also one of the other books are available by ebook as well. You can do so either the ebook that I list separately, it's only an ebook, that is going to be published either by you can get it at Kindle, Apple, or through the publisher. So therefore, that's it. Well, I'll leave you there, and I will see you as we go into chapter 12. Take care. Have a good day.